Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
So quickly, something that occurred to me, and I don't, I haven't seen this brought up elsewhere. So Long John Silver, he's the bad guy in the book in
Yeah,
Treasure Island,
yeah,
and you name your restaurant chain after him.
correct.
I get it, he's a cook, and that's his, humble beginnings.
But it's
But
not,
I don't. Do you really want to tie yourself with a mutineer?
not
Never,
really.
never mind piracy. A mutineer.
It's not so good.
Yeah, it's a bad look. And does this
It's
come
not
up before?
great.
Somebody must have said, hey, quick question. This guy, he's the antagonist, right?
But there are a few brands like that.
I get it. No one's going to Jim Hawkins' seafood buffet.
No, but I'm trying to remember. There are a few other ones that are like that, where if you really think about it, you're like, "Mm," but now I got to go back and think about them
Right.
that are, they're not so good.
There's not like Kaiser Soze's bottomless salad bar.
I mean, there should be.
We should get the Ruby Tuesdays people on it. Just completely rebrand.
Well, but okay, even Ruby Tuesday.
Hmm. Well, who could hang a name on her?
Well, true, but think about it. Like,
But it's a melancholic elegy for a past
correct,
love.
correct. Is
And I
that
don't
really
think,
where you want to go and get like,
yeah, I
you
don't
know,
think they mention a salad bar in that
there
song.
is no salad bar,
There's
there's no
okay.
pumpernickel with honey butter,
Hmm.
there's no, Long Island iced tea
Yeah, no
happy
Belgian
hour.
burgers. Yeah, it's very,
Hmm.
very true.
So that's a prime example.
Goodbye, Ruby
Um,
Tuesday. Have you tried our
hmm.
bottomless iced tea? Yeah,
Correct.
that's not how it goes.
It's not, it doesn't really hit the vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And catch your dreams before they slip away just takes a whole new meaning when you really,
Correct.
like, how come everyone in that place should be just weeping openly?
Right. Well, they probably are when they go home at night, but
That's
in the
right.
meantime, it's really not great.
But just, I feel like somebody must have said, hey, you notice Long John Silver's the bad guy in the book. And suddenly he's hawking crab legs.
And hush puppies. I don't think
Right.
they have crab legs at Long John
Mm,
Silver's.
that's Red Lobster.
Yeah, for the seafood
Mm.
lover in you.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I guess maybe the best way to go in is the title of this book. Uh, on the verge of the verb. What is the verb we are discussing? Is it action? Is it inaction? Is inaction a verb?
Um, yeah, the verb is, in the prologue of the book, I'm talking with a Lakota elder, and in the Lakota language, there are no nouns. It's all a verbal language.
Huh.
So, and I'm coming from the Jewish tradition, and in our tradition, in the mystical tradition, the word for God is a verb. So our highest way of being divine is through verbs. And usually, and what I say in the book also is that when nouns come in, the verbs end. It's like the cemetery of the verbs, which is to be always in relationship, to be in the present continuous rather than in something that is fixed and something that is closed and something that you define. And once you define something, it dies. It doesn't have room to move. So that's the meaning of the verb, that kind of verb. The verb to be always in relationship, the verb to be always continuously open and dynamic to life, because that's how life works. It's not something fixed or that we can plan ahead too much. We don't know how long we will be alive. We don't know what will happen in the next breath. And so that is the meaning of the verb for me.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, and clearly, this just the idea of the verb. it's a journey, it's an ongoing discovery and questioning.
Mhm.
What was your own journey to get to writing the book about a journey?
Well, I've been a peace activist many, many years in Israel, Palestine, which is a very hard place, as we all know.
Yeah.
It's always been, and now it's worse. So part of my book was to put things in writing that haven't happened yet, and also in terms of the world, there's so much dystopia, and also coming from the arts and movies and books, and everybody's writing about the end and about the stress of being bombarded by everything, and I wanted to give some kind of a utopia. What's like we are stuck in what's the worst possible scenario. So I wanted to say what's the best possible scenario, and how do we get there? And we get there through a collective. So the book is kind of all of my life experiences, my stories, but in the context of a fiction, of an adventure, of how to get to this amazing shift. If we took Jerusalem and Hebron, which is where Abraham is buried and all the ancestors of the Abrahamic tradition, what would happen if we took those places as acupuncture points for the planet? So, like Frank Sinatra said in the song, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. He talked about New York, but here in the book, I'm talking about Jerusalem. So if we could all focus planetary attention at one point with the stars of sports and fashion and celebrities and kings and activists and shoemakers and people who collect garbage and doctors and astronauts and shoemakers, everyone at the same time in one point. When you're doing a massage and you touch somebody in the right place of the back, and all of a sudden the arm relaxes and the fingers, and so imagine like making a massage to Jerusalem, and all of a sudden the giraffes in Africa start galloping, and people in China get relaxed, and because it is a point of stress in the planet, there's many points where pain, collective trauma has been developing for centuries and millennia in this case. And so the the utopia is to take Jerusalem as a stress point and liberate that, to massage that stress point and that collective trauma, and acknowledging those traumas. So there are ceremonies in the book where we have 1 million people surrounding, a group of soloists who are voicing the pain of their peoples with clapping and with humming and in a creative way, so we can dismantle the defense mechanisms of reality. Because if you come at reality with the known ways of activism, it won't work. You know, we have to be creative. We have to surprise reality, as I like to say, until it changes. We cannot come with the same tools that we tried over and over, screaming, you're wrong, you had to do it this way, it won't help. So we need to be creative. Yeah.
So at first I was going to say starting Jerusalem seems like a very tall task to put number one on your list. But to hear you describe it, it sort of has to be number one on the list because of the difficulty in that. And it's a region and an area that there has been so much uh, time and argument and bloodshed and disagreement over.
And
Not just,
passion.
I'm sorry,
And passion over.
most definitely passion over. Um, the skeptic might say, well, in a perfect world, everybody will come to the table with open and honest approaches and reasons for their side of point of view. Um, is this your idea and your approach? Does it require everybody involved to sort of reach a moment of clarity and have that moment of, we have to do something now, we have to have peace, we have to have some sort of collective, or is it something that some people can be dragged kicking and screaming into?
Well, in the book, what happens is that we collect a group that we call sacred agents rather than secret agents, and we get together because of affinity in trying to make a better world. And it's intergenerational. There's a couple of old Kurds who live near Syria, and there's a bunch of kids who are suing the UN for not being able to breathe. And there's there's me, there's G, I call myself G in the book, and I fall in love with this woman who is a violist. And together there's a media guy who just got away from Instagram and all that, and a millionaire who backs this whole thing with money, a couple from Switzerland, engaged Buddhist. So there is a conglomeration of humans which together form a team. It's like a spontaneous community, and they engage the Nobel laureates. We go to the Vatican and the Pope is involved, and all of a sudden the Peace Nobel laureates are involved. And I had the privilege to be in a private audience with the Dalai Lama, so it's kind of close to my life. And then we engage people in surprises, and there's where you're saying, you don't have to have everybody believe in something for it to happen. It's like Mandela says, it always seems impossible until it's done. And who would say that Mandela, after 20 something years in prison in solitary confinement, would come out and be the president of South Africa, right? Who would say that women would vote in the United States? Who would say that slavery would end? There's all things that kings would no longer be. I mean, things that happened in history that they seem impossible from anybody's perspective. But some people see, and I think that Margaret Mead said, don't think that a small group of people can't change reality, because that's what always happened. Look at Moses and Aaron and Miriam. They were three, and they defeated the Pharaoh in Egypt. So
Right.
it's like, it takes a lot of creativity and also a lot of courage to go into the pain of people, to be able to transform their ways, to get through the reptilian brain, that part of our story where we are only defending ourselves or fleeing, or flight, fright, fight, freeze, all that reaction, and go to a different part of the brain, which is the limbic brain, which is happens when you see a puppy dog or a sunset, or some beautiful person kisses you, or then those reactions of the reptilian brain melt. And then you go into the third part of the brain, which is the neocortex, where you can actually solve things because you don't feel like somebody's attacking you. You don't feel like the joy of somebody else is in competition with yours. It's not threatening you. It's like birds when they sing. They're not competing with each other's songs. Did you ever see a flower, a rose telling a lily, "Oh, you're not nice. You should be like Rose," like, no.
Well,
Or giraffe telling another giraffe, "You're a terrible giraffe." It's just humans, we have this thing where we feel threatened by the success of another, and that has to do with capitalism, but it also has to do before with patriarchy and the private property, and we have a history as humans way before that. For many more hundreds of thousands of years, we've been without jails and banks and post offices and loony bins and all those things. They didn't exist. I mean, indigenous people still remember those times because they were in 300, 500 years ago, they were living that kind of life. The Lakota people, for example, in Turtle Island, there was no jail. There was no people who were poor. They would share whatever they hunted. So there is a memory, a deep memory within us that we have to tap into, and it's not linear. There are no recipes for peace or for a different kind of life, which is more beautiful. We just have to tap into beauty. And we have that because when a human being sings, like even an elephant likes it, or even birds look at us we are the youngest creature, right? We came the last. So we're like 2-year-olds, we're like bumping into things, things, and we want to go to Mars, and we don't care what happens with that. So it's like but sometimes we are endearing because we are the little ones. And so the mountains look at us and say, oh, look at those, or the river, or, so that's what I'm trying to tap into the great mystery of things, and into the beauty and the poetry and the poetics of activism, not, activism. And also the shadows, because to get there I go through my own shadows, and my own, in relationships, in building community, in activism, where I lose it, where I get angry, where I go back to my passe emotion and elbows, my addictions, my all my shit, right? It happens. But if you can, like, share it with other people, be transparent about it and transform it, there is a choice there. And there's a possibility that through the collective intelligence, we can remember, become members again of that beauty and of a different kind of life.
So how do we take the book and make it real?
Well,
See, this
you
is my
know,
problem. I want to make it happen. Like, how do we do it?
well, you start by, enjoy when you, and maybe invite somebody with you, and then maybe invite more people that you never met before, and maybe somebody who's from a different race, or a different neighborhood, or a different class, or homeless people, and then you make music together, and then it's cooking, it's singing, it's dancing, it's painting, it's sharing the beautiful part of life with people you don't know. Maybe you start with people you know, but then opening it up. We used to make gatherings with Palestinians and Israelis of 5,000 people, 7,000 people for 5 days in nature. We had a common kitchen with people cook together. There was a children's tent. And all of a sudden, you're cutting tomatoes next to somebody you would never meet in your life, and you start a conversation. And then it gets cold, and you share a blanket. And, things happen when you share stuff that is common to people, not when you start in a little panel with a bottle of water and a microphone, and you say, oh,
Right.
according to my religion or my
Right.
tradition, that won't change anything. But if you start coexisting in real life, that's how you bring it to your life, by doing things you do. Right now, I'm caring for my 88-year-old mom. So that's my focus is there. I try to be
Right.
creative with her. I try to do, what I can with her to make her happy, and not think too much about death and anxiety and all that. So each one has to be an activist where he's at or where she's at, not try to solve everything at the same time. That's why groups are good, because in a collective, you have the quiet one and you have the leader, and that rotates also. You have the cook and you have the clown and you have the one who says, hey, but things are sad, we need to cry also. And you have all of the roles that sometimes by yourself you cannot achieve it. So that's why in the book I try to build a team, and that's the part of the story.
Well, it's interesting hearing you describe all of these things and the things that bring us together as a species. Um, Song, or basically it all comes from the arts, that
Well,
you see something,
cooking or gardening,
but
yeah.
there's an art form to that. It's
Yes.
it's a combination of things, and it's having the ability to appreciate what somebody else has created one way or another. It is having the ability to sympathize or feel the emotions that is in a sad song or something else. Um, and Roger Ebert, the film critic, always talked about a film projector as a human empathy machine,
Mm-hmm.
that it shows you another person's life, and because it's so big, you start to feel that person's joys and sorrows. And with this book, you're working in an art form that is designed to have people read it and spend some time with this character and get into this headspace and this idea of accepting this. Do you think that art is one of the better ways to do this? You said not with a microphone and a bottle of water and a PowerPoint presentation. Is it through art? Is it through something creative that will kind of help
Yes,
bring this about?
creative for sure, and maybe art in a bigger sense of the word, because for example, in Hebrew, the word art, omanut, comes from the word amen, which is from ceremony, and so also theater in the Greek tradition comes from shamanism. All of it comes from a spiritual place. So even activism, let's say you take Standing Rock and what happened in the Lakota people, and when all there were 10,000 people come, they would pray every day. They would have a sweat lodge. They would have a ceremony for the police, including, you know. And so, yeah, when you say creative, that's the root for shifting something. I think of lullabies. I think of recipes. I think of jokes. Those are the ways to get into transformation. It's not about screaming, you're wrong and I'm right, or this is my idea. And it's not like that change happens. Change happens when you inspire somebody. Let's say somebody's super angry, and instead of saying, hey, calm down, you just put a flower on his nose. And oh, and then he starts smelling and he said, what happened? And he forgets that he's angry, you know, like there are ways to surprise the reptilian brain, which is what we are used to being all the time, you know, in competition. And so to go from competition to cooperation, you got to get inspired by something. And art, to answer your question, does that, you know. And it's, I wouldn't say like performative art or museum art, or art as a bigger, you know, as a bigger, like the word heart has art in it, you know.
Right.
So I like the word heartivist. So, you know, not just artivist, but also heartivist, because things that come with the heart reach the heart. And when you reach the heart of somebody, you can be in completely different, you know, ideologies, and the person can have voted for somebody. But if you reach them through a lullaby that his grandmother used to sing to him, he might get happy and then listen to you about other things, you know. So that's the magic of art, that it brings you to a different place. As you said, it brings you to empathy, walking in somebody else's moccasins during a movie or during a book. Actually, in my book I also have songs because I'm a musician, so I have QR codes that you can listen to during the chapters depending which song comes up. And yeah, the vision for this book is to bring art into people's hearts, that know that a more beautiful life is possible in this one, even with all the pain and the fear and the grief. We have to acknowledge that, but we do it as a collective in ceremony, creating ceremonies for grief, creating ceremonies for transforming collective trauma.
Well, and the idea of these ceremonies and this sort of a group uh, a group healing or a group acceptance of something. You mentioned that you got to visit with the Dalai Lama. I know you've studied the Jewish faith a lot and spent a lot of time with that. You know, and it seems like a lot of faiths have some element of a uh, ceremony or act designed to create that forgiveness cycle and that letting this go and amending for your, you know, errant ways in the past. Um, do you think it's possible to do that in a atheistic way that doesn't upset anybody? Because obviously Buddhists and
For
Catholics and
sure. I mean,
Christians and
it's God optional, you know. God is just a word in German, you know. God is not God. God is just a word. So, you know, whatever you want to call that, if you want to call it, you know, the big forgiveness, or, you know, the great spirit, or the great mystery, or Elohim, or
Steve,
Allah,
yeah.
or whatever you want to call it, you know, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing, you know, the same one. If it's one, I remember this story with one of my teachers, that I was like, you know, I was with all these people, Hindus, and I got a little scared because I've never been in India until then. Since then, I've been there 4 times, but like I used to see all the statues and say, oh wow, and they're singing to Shiva and to Krishna, my teacher, rabbi, you know, he just went Om Namah Shivaya, you know. And he said, listen, Gabriel, he said, if there's only one, so what do you care how each one calls the one? Each one has a different way. You know, tomatoes call God in tomato language, and Muslims call it in Muslim language, and atheists calling in atheist language, but it's the same one. It doesn't matter, you know, if you call it God or you don't, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how you conduct yourself in your life, if you're kind. That's all. All the rest is just books and religions who make money out of their and power out of their games. But the actual message, if you talk to, let's say, Moses or Jesus or Muhammad, they would all, Buddha, they would all be friends. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
and if they came to a synagogue, Moses would be expelled in 5 minutes. If he to a church, they wouldn't let
Right.
him in. You
Right.
know, if Muhammad went into a mosque, he wouldn't be let in. So things are, you know, very different in their origin. That's why in the book I go all the way back to the original myth. Abraham was buried in this cave, and in this cave, in the Bible, even in the Bible, in the Old Testament, like esoterically, not mystically, the sons of Abraham, the father of the Arabs, Ishmael and Isaac, the son of the Jews, they get together to bury them. Nobody studies this. And this is what we bring back in the ceremony. We bring back the original brotherhood of these peoples. And like that, you can find the brotherhood of Kashmiri Hindus with Muslims. And, you know, and then you can find the humus and the human. The word human comes from the word humus, which is the topsoil. And we've forgotten that. We think we humans are in the center of everything, and we're not. We're a part of the earth, a part of the hoop of life. You know, we're not more important than a butter.
Come back.
Mhm.
Frozen.
Nope. There we go.
Did I
There
get
you are.
there? Sorry.
Yeah,
You
it's
froze
okay.
there. Yeah.
Oh, so one more thing about the origins is like Abraham goes, this is a myth, a legend that I also mentioned in the book. He gets initiated by Melchizedek, his the first king of Jerusalem. This is in the Bible, and the not the New Age version of that, but the actual story, the biblical story, and and he gives him bread and wine, and they have it together. And the mystics say the teaching goes that, you know, you have wine because you need truth and you need justice, but you have bread because you need love and you need peace. And they have to go together. You cannot have love without truth, and you cannot have peace without justice. And you cannot have justice without peace, and you cannot have, you know, truth without love. So the balance is, that is the message, and that is what we're trying to bring forth. And if you go deep in a ceremony into the roots of the situation, you go deep enough, then you can dismantle it. If you stay at the same place of, oh, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, is never going to solve anything. So sometimes it's more important not to be right, but to be use our intelligence in service of the heart and see what is that is going to make hearts shift. And it's not about telling the other person he's wrong or they're wrong, you know.
Yeah,
When
you're
you
right.
met with the Dalai Lama, did he like pull you aside and give you any sort of like tip? Was he just like, it's all in crypto, it's all in plastics, or no?
Oh yeah, it was amazing because this was, I think, in 2005, a while ago, and he was still the head of the Tibetan political people, and not just the
Mm,
spiritual head. And we had a private audience. It was me and my Palestinian partner, and we took a Sufi sheikh that used to come to our gatherings from Senegal, and the three of us and a little team with a video. And the guy who organized the meeting, who was the same one that organized the meeting between Mandela and the Dalai Lama in South Africa, told me, listen, Gabriel, it's going to be like 10 or maximum 15 minutes. I said, what? We're going all the way to India for 10 minutes? He said, well, what do you want? It's the Dalai Lama. Everybody, you know, he has many like you every day. And so I wasn't happy about that at all. So anyway, we go to Jordan, we take the plane there, we make another plane to Delhi, we take the train, we take the minivan, we get to the place. And then when we get to security in the morning, we have, there's a big clock in front of the sofa where I'm sitting. The Dalai Lama is right next to me, like half a meter from me. And I sit next to my, Palestinian partner and the Sufi sheikh, and then there's the team, there's the translator, and there's the geshe who used to come to our gatherings, and that's it. And so I brought 3 gifts, and I, proudly give him the olive oil from the gatherings. This is, oh, very nice, thank you. And then I give him a mandala, from the women of the Abraham faiths, Christian woman, Muslim woman, Jewish woman, beautiful. Oh, thank you, very good. And then I gave my greatest hits in one paragraph. I prepared, the greatest hits of Gabriel, the best thing I can say in one paragraph. And I get so excited, I get up, I stand up, I say, okay, sit down, please. Thank you, thank you. And then it goes to my partner, and he prepared his greatest hits. And then the other Sufi sheikh, and then I look at the clock, it's been 15 minutes. I have to do something or we go home. And the only thing the Dalai Lama said was, thank you, sit down. So I just close my eyes. I go back in the sofa and I start, Achi elayo, la samacha, ando chaye, Achi elayo. Ando macha, ando chayo, achielayo. And this was the place. This song is a folk song from Tibet that I learned when I was in India the time before, from the Amdo region, which is where the Dalai Lama grew up. And the Dalai Lama goes, I say, what did he say? I asked the translator, I don't understand Tibetan. He's asking me who you are. He had no idea who we were until that moment. And so he started telling him, oh, this, that, that, that. He said, oh, very interesting, he says. And he started telling us of a spiritual experience he had in a church in Portugal with the Virgin of Fatima, the Dalai Lama.
Oh my gosh.
Making it up. And so we say, wow. And he said, yes, it's very important. And this is one of the tips he gave us to go in the ceremonies of other traditions, not just to be in a panel and talk about your ideas of other, just immerse yourself in the shoes of somebody else's spiritual experience. And the meeting went on for 1 hour.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, but if I wouldn't have sang,
You never would have had
his
it.
culture, that's it. These 3 guys, who knows, okay, they're coming from the Middle East. Thank you.
Right.
Next. But no, something,
See?
I had to surprise the mechanism of the meeting for something to really happen. And it did.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
When it sounds like it's almost
Oh,
sort of in disrupting the meeting in that way, you were saying to this great spiritual leader and anybody else, like it's about listening to other people. It's about listening and kind of going like, oh, wait a second. I see where our similarities are and where our differences are, but is like, I want to hear about what you're doing and I will tell you about what I'm doing and we will listen and converse.
By the way,
Is it-
that story is in the book also. So yeah.
that's
Oh,
amazing.
that's
I love
great.
it.
Yeah,
That's
all
so
these
cool.
stories, with the Sufis in Turkey, with Iranians in the mountains of Turkey that I did like 4 years.
Amazing.
All these things in Africa with elephants, singing to them, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Well, but from doing all of this, from having all these great experiences, these moments of, I would, not to put words in your mouth, moments of clarity and sort of realization. What do you come back from all of this with? Are you optimistic about life, humanity, or is it we still need to keep fighting really hard so we don't lose that humanity?
Well, fighting is not the right verb, but it's
Good point.
To
I
miss
stand-
everything.
I know. I stand corrected. I apologize.
it's still very hard for me. I mean, I get depressed like 10 times a day. I get
Mhm.
out 15 times a day. I mean, with my mom, I get, frustrated and I
Certainly,
lose
yeah.
it. And then the good part of me is that I remember and then I get back to it. And that's the point. The point is that we all lose it. The Dalai Lama loses it. Like when he talked about the young people criticizing him for being too soft on the Chinese, and, like everybody, Moses lost it.
Oh yeah, he really lost
David,
Famously, yeah.
David lost it.
Yeah.
Jesus loses it. Everybody loses it.
Mhm.
So the thing is not if you lose it, the only way to find something is if you lose it, right? So you have to get lost to find something. To find yourself, you have to get lost. If you never go anywhere and you still safe and sound in the place you will never grow. You will never know anything new, right? So you have to get lost. You have to fall to be able to get up again. So that is the point, is to get up, to not despair when you despair, to always have that part in you that says, hey, if I look up to the sky, then my eyes don't hurt anymore when I look back to the screen. Those little things. And oh, a bird. Oh, and my shoulder feels different. The bird like connected with me. And anything like a smile from somebody in the street. When somebody says hello to you, it's, hey, I don't know that person. Why did they smile at me? Oh, it can be like that. Maybe we have that in us. That's the rekindling of the mystery, the rekindling of the beauty. Even with all the pain and with all the destruction, and even if the world is ending, okay, how do we want to live? Do we want to live like screaming and like, or do we want to live with a song, with a smile? How do we want our movie to end? Anyway, we're all going to die. I just heard the news. Before
true.
death, there is life. That's news. It's
Yes.
confirmed now.
Ooh, so glad to know.
Yeah, everybody's so busy with after death. I'm busy with before death.
Yes, agreed. I'm with
Yes,
you.
so that's in the book also. Anyway, so many things that I try to, I think humor is like
Yes.
one of the most important medicines in life. And actually, we're going now into the new moon tomorrow or today already of the last moon of the Hebrew calendar, which is Adar. And, the festival of Purim, it's when carnival happens all over the earth, and spring fever, and the animals don't know if spring is coming or not. And it's crazy. And this is the last lesson, is to not take yourself so seriously. I've never met a serious person who wasn't funny. Never. Like, including the Dalai Lama. Like, and people who know how to laugh at themselves. I find people who don't know to laugh about themselves very suspicious. I don't trust them.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
They're very
So I think
suspicious.
humor, there's an ancient story in Thebes where they had 42 gods and goddesses. When you cross the river of death, the Duad, and the last goddess, Meshkenet, the 42nd goddess, she just laughed and erased the 41 gods that came before her. So the medicine of laughter is the same medicine that the kings, there was the buffon, the jester who would make the king laugh, and the king wouldn't kill him. He was the only one because he made him laugh. It's the same in the mystical tradition you have in Aramaic, the Batchana de Malka, in the book of the Zohar, of the main book of the Kabbalah, which is the endearing character who is always naughty and always like making, the king laugh, God laugh, or the goddess, or whatever the mystery or creation of, or anybody else laugh, because laughter is a medicine. And when I find myself in despair, like, I go to laughter and it cures me. It just helps living.
On the Verge, the Verb by Gabriel Meyer is available right now wherever you get your books. For more information, you can check out his website, Gabriel Meyer Halevi.
Why the Podcast is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we're shallow and need constant validation. For more information, you can check out our website, whythepodcast.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hedquist and myself from our world headquarters, located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?